So this is my second example showing you how to use a quadratic formula. It's going to be slightly harder than the first example, but don't worry, if you haven't seen the first one, you probably could understand this one, but I'm going to go through this example a little bit faster than the first example and not explain too many of the basics. Here we go. We've got x squared plus 4x equals 5. First thing is that it has a quadratic equation to be used or solved by the quadratic formula has to be equal to 0, so we've got to plonk everything onto that side. So that 5 has to jump over the equal sign over here and become a minus 5, which leaves nothing on this side. So you basically have x squared plus 4x minus 5 equals 0, which is great because you wanted it to equal to 0 before you're allowed to use the quadratic formula on this equation. So just to remind you, the quadratic formula is going to tell you what x is. It basically solves the quadratic equation. This quadratic formula solves any quadratic equation like this one. And to do that, you need to know what a, b, and c are, because there's an a, b over there and c over there that needs to be filled in, substituted for, before it gives you the answer to what x is, which is actually two possible answers you'll find out in a minute. So a is the number in front of x squared, b is the number in front of x, and c is the number at the end of your quadratic equation. And so it's not any old quadratic equation that it solves. It solves what we call a trinomial, a three-part quadratic equation. Okay, it's going to have something x squared, something x, and some number equal to 0. So, what is the number in front of x squared? Because you obviously can't see one. Well, x squared is the same as 1x squared. So if there was a 1 there, which is allowed, which means the same thing, the a would be 1. So a is 1, basically. And b is a number in front of x, so b is 4. And c is a number at the end, which is minus 5. Okay? You have to use a sign in front to decide if it's a minus 5 or a plus 5, a normal 5. So you stick in a equals 1, b equals 4, and c equals minus 5 into this formula, the quadratic formula. So instead of b, I'm going to have, instead of minus b, instead of b, I'm going to have 4. So this bit becomes minus 4, like it says over there, because you've got minus b, not just b. Instead of b squared, you're going to have 4 squared. Instead of 4ac, which means 4 times a times c, you're going to have 4 times 1 times minus 5, because a is 1 and c is minus 5. So you've got that basically. And instead of 2a, you're going to have 2 times, which means 2 times a. A is 1, so it becomes 2 times 1, like it says there. And then you've got to simplify and simplify and simplify until you get to the answer. So that's what we're going to do next. So 4 squared is 16. That minus 4 is the same as that minus 4. 2 times 1 is 2. This bit here can be read in two different ways. You can say it as either minus 4 times 1 times minus 5. Okay, so 4 times 1 times minus 5 is minus 20, and minus 20 is plus 20. Or the other way, which I prefer, is just to treat that as a minus 4 times 1 times minus 5. So minus 4 times 1 times minus 5 is positive 20, so you just write plus 20 straight away. So that becomes all of this. Now, let's simplify even further. 16 plus 20 is 36. The square root of 36 is 6 and minus 6. And so the way you write it is plus or minus 6. I explained this in the previous video, but I'll explain it very quickly again. Whenever you square root something, you always get two equal and opposite answers, basically. Okay, so you might have thought square root of 36 is just 6, but you have to relearn something. You always get two equal and opposite answers. That's why you got this plus and minus sign. In fact, you don't even need the plus and minus sign, strictly speaking, because automatically, when you square root something, you should know that there's going to be two answers, opposite answers. So the two answers basically to the square root of 36 is 6 and minus 6, which is what this means. Which basically means this can be written like this or like that. Minus 4 minus 6 over 2, the minus version, or minus 4 plus 6 over 2. They're both what this means. And so this one formula gives you two solutions, two values to what x is. So minus 4 minus 6 is minus 10. Minus 10 divided by 2 is minus 5. So that's one answer to what x is. Minus 4 plus 6 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So that's the other solution to what x is. So x equals minus 5 and 1.